Hey, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name's Christina Kent, and I'm a fine artist based out of San Francisco. And in this video, I'm going to be continuing my exploration into new research and developments around AI art, and our understanding of creativity. So recently, I made a video covering my reaction to news that a humanoid robot had made a physical painting that sold for over $1 million. So if you haven't seen that video, you can check it out here. But basically, there was a huge reaction, and I found that this issue is really polarizing among people. There were a lot of people who said that AI can never create art, it can never be creative, it's simply just remixing things and mimicking things, but it's not actually creating anything new. And then there was a whole other group of people who were saying that not only can AI create art, it's creating exactly in the way that humans create, and it's doing better than humans. Or people were saying that maybe it's not quite there yet, but it's going to be there very soon. And so my question is this: who's right? Is AI creative in an artistic sense? Can AI truly make art? And I think to answer this question, we can bring up an important case study, and that is the case of AlphaGo. Now, if you haven't heard of AlphaGo, it is an AI model that was trained to play the game of Go, a game that humans have been playing for, I think, thousands of years. Since the emergence of AI models, a very common application for these models has been to play games. So maybe you haven't heard of AlphaGo, but you've heard of AI models beating top chess players at chess. So Go is a similar complex game. It involves a lot of strategy. It's very difficult. It's very complicated, but it's like a whole level higher than chess even in terms of its complexity. The game is so complex that even after AI models had beat professional chess players, people still thought that AI would not be able to win at Go, that it was just too complex for these models to figure out, and that you needed human intuition. One of the reasons for this is that there are just so many options for how you can play the game of Go. There's so many different strategies that if you try to just brute force all these strategies with a supercomputer, even with the best computers, it's going to take forever for you to predict out which would be the best moves, the winning moves. And all of this is covered really well in the documentary AlphaGo, which I would highly recommend watching if you're interested in this topic. But anyway, researchers at DeepMind created this AI algorithm AlphaGo to see if they could actually master this impossible game. And in the process, they found that AI was able to demonstrate things that looked a lot like human creativity. And they were able to get to this point by training the model in a new way. So first, they did sort of traditional training where they would have the AI watch a bunch of recorded amateurs playing AlphaGo and seeing all the moves that they were making and trying to learn how to play the game from those amateurs. After it learned the rules of the game and it learned these basic strategies, it was able to use what's called reinforcement learning to start to play the game against itself and learn from the games that it played against itself millions of times over. And after it had played itself all these times and perfected its strategies, it was finally able to play a real human player. And they ended up playing the top Go player in the world at the time, Lee Sedol. Now, at the time, Lee Sedol was pretty confident that he would be able to beat Go because he was sure that Go required human intuition and creativity and that a machine just simply could not replicate this. Lee Sedol played AlphaGo in a tournament of 5 games, and in the end, AlphaGo ended up winning 4 out of the 5 games. Not only that, but AlphaGo won one of the games by playing a move that was completely novel, that Lee Sedol and many other players had never seen before, and that they felt was actually a new way of playing the game. AlphaGo had initially trained studying human strategies, and so you might think that it was just copying what humans would do, but in this game, it actually proved that it could come up with a whole new creative strategy that helped it win the game. This type of creativity in AI was something that people previously had thought was impossible. And I think it raises an important question. If AI could be really creative in the game of Go and come up with this new strategy that even top players in the world had never even thought of, then what does that mean for creativity in art? I mean, all of these people were saying that AlphaGo couldn't be creative enough to beat the top players, that you needed human intuition, that you needed creativity, that you needed something special that a machine simply could not replicate. And yet, AlphaGo did it. And now, with the art debate, I feel like we're hearing the exact same things. People are saying that humans have this intuition, this creativity, this special thing that machines just can't replicate. But if it could do it in Go, can it do it in art? However, on this subject, I'm going to say not so fast. And I'm not just saying this because I'm an artist. I think we have good reasons to think that creativity in art is very different from creativity that we're seeing in games like Go. Go and other games are really nicely defined universes. They have clear rules, they have winners and losers, they have measurable outcomes. All of these things are really great for training algorithms. After each game in Go, you know who won and who lost, and even during the game, you can see who's in a stronger position strategically and who's in a weaker position. Art, on the other hand, is very different. It's subjective, and there's no clear winners or losers. And as I mentioned in my previous video, the way that AI is making art right now doesn't seem particularly creative if we're thinking about creating something new and something that humans have not done before. Because the way it's creating art now is it creates this data set and it's like this multidimensional space where it's mapping all these different art pieces and ideas, and then we can use prompts to navigate within that space. But from my understanding, we're not going actually outside of the space that it's created. We're just sort of remixing all of the art that already exists. To me, this is akin to AlphaGo when it was training based on watching humans play the game and watching their strategies. If it had only played the game after that, I think we would probably see it behaving very similar to how these humans behaved. What was the key difference with AlphaGo, I think, happened when the algorithm started to play against itself, because then it could really start to evolve, it could start to try new things, it would encounter new situations, and it could develop new and unheard of strategies. But it's unclear how this idea of reinforcement learning would be adapted to art, because to be able to play against itself, to make its own art pieces, it needs to have some way of judging those pieces, of seeing whether or not those pieces are successful or not. And that gets really difficult when we take into account that art is subjective. And here I think it's important to highlight what creativity is and the different types of creativity. In one of his podcasts, Daniel Huberman was talking about types of creativity, and in particular, the difference between convergent and divergent thinking. Convergent thinking is when you're looking for a single correct answer and you're trying to find the best strategy, the best way to get to that correct answer. Divergent thinking, on the other hand, is when you don't have one correct answer, but instead you want to be exploring, you want to be kind of finding out lots of different new ideas. Now, both of these ways of thinking require creativity, but they require it in different ways. And I think that convergent thinking is the type of thinking that you're using when you're playing a game like AlphaGo and you're trying to win. And it's the type of creativity that our current AI models really excel at. Divergent thinking, on the other hand, when you're trying to come up with new things and create lots of new ideas and there's just no right answer, this seems a lot more like the realm of art. Creativity in art is about exploring new ideas. It's not about trying to find a correct answer. It's about exploring boundaries, experimenting, and crucially for humans, expressing emotion. And I think on that front, AI is not quite there yet. And on AI's path to getting there, I see one of the big problems is this fact of subjectivity in art. People like to look at art for different reasons, and lots of people have all different kinds of preferences on what art they think is good. When it's playing a game like Go, AI has a clear goal that it's optimizing towards. But when it comes to art, what would it be optimizing towards? Because there's no one public consensus on what makes good art. Sure, AI could try to make art that's the most popular, like an AI artist on Instagram trying to optimize for likes, but I think we all can agree that popularity doesn't necessarily mean great art, and a lot of great artists in the past were not popular during their time. So I think for art, AI might have to pursue a different route. I find it hard to imagine a world where there's one AI model that makes the best art that everyone agrees is great. But I could imagine a world where there's many different AI models, each catering to different people's artistic preferences. But even that becomes complicated because people's preferences change over time. The artists I loved when I was younger are definitely not the same as the artists that I love now. For me, all these signs point to the fact that it's going to be a while before AI takes over the art world. That being said, I do think that AI has made a lot of advances in AI art, and it's pretty impressive. Recently, Scott Alexander put together what he called the AI art Turing test, where he put together about 50 images and then he invited over 10,000 people to try to see if they could guess which images were AI generated and which images were created by human artists. In the test, he tried to pick art from a variety of artistic movements, so from more medieval style art to impressionism to digital art, and he also tried to pick art that was really relatively good. So he picked some pieces from art history that they were art historical pieces, but they weren't so famous to be very well known among most people. And then among the AI art, he discarded images that that had some obvious tells. For example, if the people in the image had too many fingers, which is something that AI struggles with, or if there was text in the image that was garbled, another thing that AI art often struggles with, he would throw those out. So he threw out the pieces that had obvious tells. And so there was some like curation in this process. But yeah, he put together all these images and then he asked people, can you guess whether or not these are AI generated? I took the test myself and I am embarrassed to say that I guessed correctly just a bit over 50% of the time. For me, it was pretty much a coin toss whether or not I got it right. And I'm not sure if the AI generated art was impressively good or because the human art was impressively bad, but I was actually pretty bad at predicting which pieces were AI and which ones were human made. Now, I will say, of course, this is looking at digital images on a screen. This isn't looking at actual physical paintings, so maybe there would be a difference there. And also, I was happy to say that the only two pieces that I really liked that particularly inspired something in me. There were two pieces that I particularly enjoyed, and both of them were made by human artists. So at least there's that. So from my perspective, as it stands, AI art can at least already make some mediocre art. But can it make art that's truly creative, that's truly groundbreaking? I think that remains to be seen. And of course, one thing that I haven't emphasized is the importance of the human element in a lot of art. Now, of course, people look at art for a lot of different reasons, and having that human element is not always necessary. If you're just looking for a beautiful painting for your walls, or you're looking for some cool image to inspire, it doesn't necessarily need to be created by a human. And I can see how AI could potentially take over that space. But at the same time, a lot of times when I'm looking at art, and I know when my friends are looking at art, we are partially looking at it for that human connection. The idea that some artist had this idea in mind and they wanted to put it to canvas to communicate it with us, the viewer. Like someone spent hours, days, months, sometimes even years of their life to bring this idea to life. And I find something really beautiful and meaningful in that. And this is not even mentioning the topic of soul in art, which a lot of you brought up in comments to my previous video, and I also feel like is really important, but I'm not going to be discussing that in this video, but I just wanted to note that yes, I think that is also an open question and an important discussion. I think that with art and with so many other things, we want to see that human element. We want to have that human connection. For example, we have machines like cars that can drive way faster than a human could ever move. And yet I still love to watch human sprinters sprinting in a race. There's something that's just so meaningful and so powerful in seeing these humans run this race. I feel like when I watch top sprinters and top athletes, they inspire me. They help me think about my own life. And I feel this human connection. I'm connected to their strength. I'm connected to their vulnerability. And that's just something that is distinctly human. And sometimes I find it hard to articulate why the human element is so important. But I find there's like a helpful metaphor in thinking about the difference between movies and documentaries. So if we think about movies, they usually are filmed in a really beautiful and engaging way. They have actors and actresses who really help bring you into the scene, and you can really get lost in the feeling of a movie. It's so engaging. Then we have documentaries, which on the face of it seem inferior to movies. They don't usually necessarily, unless it's a docudrama, they're not involving actors and actresses. Oftentimes it's just shots interviewing people who are talking about their experiences, maybe spliced in with a few photos and images here and there. And yet people still love documentaries. Why is that? It's because documentaries are based on true stories. They're based on something that actually happened in reality. And that mere fact is so powerful. It's powerful enough that we're able to watch something that otherwise would be less engaging than a fictional movie, and yet we watch it anyway because it still is able to make us feel something. Stories are important, history is important, and this is something that I think that human artists bring to their work. Some art is just decorative. It's supposed to look nice, it's supposed to be interesting or beautiful or even funny or thought-provoking in some way, and it's really not about the artist behind it. But for the art that I find the most meaningful, the artist behind it and their history is also really important to the art itself. I think Joan Mitchell's paintings wouldn't be the same if you didn't have her behind the pieces and the feeling or imagining her body moving, creating those expressive brushstrokes that were driven by her emotion. And it's not just painting. We can think about performance art like Marina Abramović's The Artist is Present, where she sat in the MoMA every single day for 8 hours a day without moving, staring into people's eyes. I mean, this was just an incredible piece, and it really wouldn't hit the same way if it was done with a machine. Or conceptual artist Danh Vō's piece, Oma Totem, which, if you look at it on face value, it's just a few appliances stacked on top of each other. But it becomes meaningful when we connect it with his story and his experience as a Vietnamese immigrant in Europe. So taken together, what does all of this mean for the future of AI, art, and creativity? If the question is, can AI be creative? I think the answer to that is yes. Based on seeing what AlphaGo did, we can see that AI can come up with completely novel solutions that humans have never thought of before. And if we're asking if AI can create images that are beautiful and exciting and cool, I think the answer to that is also yes. If we look at the work that's created through Midjourney and DALL-E, we can see lots of examples of, at least right now, mostly digital pieces that are beautiful and cool and interesting. Now, I do think that AI's creativity seems to do really well when it comes to a situation that has a clear goal and clear parameters, like a game. Art is subjective and it's open-ended, and I think that poses a lot more difficulty for training AI algorithms. At the same time, with AI like Midjourney and DALL-E, we're already seeing AI be able to create pieces and images that are beautiful and interesting. But can AI create art that is truly meaningful? I think that still remains to be seen. I don't think it's quite there yet, but I can also imagine a future where it would eventually get there. But that doesn't mean that it would eliminate the need for human art. I can imagine a future where we have AIs making art, we have AIs and humans working together making art, and we have humans making art. I think there's a place for all of these things in our creative ecosystem. So anyway, that's all I have for today, and I definitely don't want to say that this is like the end of this discussion. I really hope that these thoughts and making these videos is just kind of opening the discussion, putting up these questions, and stimulating new thought on this topic. AI isn't going away, and if anything, it's developing at an extremely quick pace, so I think it's important that we talk about it, that we think about it, and that we engage with these questions. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comments below, and if it raised any interesting ideas or questions in your mind. And as always, a huge shout out to my supporters on Patreon. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for supporting this channel and making these videos happen. If you like my art, if you like my videos, and you want to help me make more, check out my Patreon at the link. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.